In recent years, NASCAR has explored the possibilities of racing in new markets and with unique track ideas. Today, I'm going to be taking a look back at NASCAR tracks that were proposed but never built. The one that would have been NASCAR's crowning achievement will be saved for last, so make sure you stick around to see the story of how that track almost came to be. Canadian Motor Speedway is the most recent entry on this list. The plan called for a 3/4 of a mile oval and a 2-mile road course to be built in Fort Erie, Ontario, located just 4 miles from the US-Canada border in Buffalo and 11 miles from Niagara Falls. The oval would have had 60,000 grandstand seats, 5,000 club seats, and 80 suites along the front straightaway. This track proposal gained notoriety thanks to being designed in part by Jeff Gordon, and he would have had an ownership stake in the track. While initially proposed in 2005, by 2010 the Fort Erie and Niagara Falls City Councils had unanimously approved the project to go ahead. However, by 2012, appeals registered by local citizens and businesses were taken to the Ontario Municipal Board. The board dismissed the appeals and allowed the development to proceed. However, although some minor environmental work was done on the site, the developers were unable to begin constructing the facility by 2018. The Speedway company had until September 13th, 2020 to start building, as that was the date the Speedway's zoning waiver expired. In August of 2020, the project's developers emerged to request an extension on the zoning waiver, stating that a major backer from Kuwait had dropped out of the project, and that they planned on beginning construction in early 2021 if they could receive an extension of their zoning rights. The waiver was granted, with an expiration date of November 2021. However, in spring of that year, the owner, still unable to secure replacement funds, began putting some of the surrounding land up for sale. The waiver expired in November of 2021, officially ending the Canadian Motor Speedway project. Canadian Motor Speedway had a chance to succeed, being located essentially on the US-Canadian border, with the marketing of being designed by Jeff Gordon. However, the developers clearly did not have the funds to build the track, and Canada missed out on a premier oval racing facility. In 1999, a group named Brant Motorsports Inc. proposed a racing complex near Pittsburgh International Airport in Pennsylvania. The track would have been a high-banked 3/4 of a mile oval with 60,000 permanent seats and room for expansion. So what was so special about this proposal? Well, the Brant Group wanted it to be the first ever fully enclosed racing facility. That's right, it would have been a dome. County Commissioner Matt DeWita said a state-of-the-art ventilation system would, quote, remove fumes and auto exhaust through the floor of the facility. A tunnel would enable race cars to get to the track from the outside. Like any proposal for racetracks, the project ran out of steam due to finances, mostly having to do with the large costs associated with building an entire ventilation system from scratch for the new track. You might think having a dome over a racetrack is impossible, but every year the Gateway Dirt Nationals are held inside the dome at America's Center, formerly known as the Edward Jones Dome, home of the now gone St. Louis Rams. Of course, the Chili Bowl Nationals at the Tulsa Expo Center is also another enormous event. Midget racing shows that racing indoors is possible from a technical standpoint, but building a dome big enough for a large oval required to host NASCAR national events would be a tall task. In the early 2000s, NASCAR was looking to expand into the Pacific Northwest. International Speedway Corporation, or ISC, now a division of NASCAR itself, wanted to hit the Seattle market, following success with cities like Miami, the Chicagoland suburbs, and Kansas City. Eventually, they found a site in 2003 in Marysville, Washington, about 35 miles north of Seattle. That's a pretty common distance away from the big city that most NASCAR tracks attach themselves to, so it was really not too far out of the way. The goal is to get the track built, so the outskirts of a large metro area serve that purpose. Anyway, one major difference ISC had up its sleeve here is that the track was going to be publicly funded and then leased out to ISC to operate through race weekends. However, in 2004, Marysville officials and representatives from ISC stated that the project could not continue as the cost for the particular site would have been too high. NASCAR's next attempt came with a proposal for a site in Bremerton, Washington, just across Puget Sound from downtown Seattle. The track would have been funded through public bonds, but local officials in Bremerton were more lukewarm about the idea. NASCAR tried, but a lack of support from residents and local officials killed off any hope of a track in the Pacific Northwest. Besides, it's hard to justify spending millions of dollars for an oval in an area that is notorious for how much it rains. If NASCAR ever wants to put the Cup Series in the region, they can run on the road course in Portland. The Xfinity Series and IndyCar already do, so Portland can definitely answer the call if needed. In the late 1990s, 1.5 mile speedways were popping up all over the place in huge markets. Dallas, Fort Worth, Las Vegas, Miami, and Kentucky were some of the brand new facilities that opened in this time frame. One major city that had a proposed track was New Orleans. According to the Winston-Salem Journal, promoter Ralph Sanchez, who had been instrumental in the creation of the Homestead Miami Speedway, was attached to spearhead the project. Originally, Sanchez's proposed track was to be a 2-mile version of Texas Motor Speedway, located near the Jazzland theme park, eventually named Six Flags New Orleans. While this track did not get off the ground, the location would have been interesting for sure. Six Flags New Orleans was shuttered for Hurricane Katrina, and due to the obscene amount of flood and wind damage, the park never reopened and now sits abandoned. Assuming the racetrack could have been opened around 2003 or 2004, the track would have sustained immense damage from Katrina and probably would have closed operations before it was even able to host a cup race. The only racetrack in the New Orleans area is NOLA Motorsports Park, which hosted one IndyCar race in 2015. The race was plagued by, ironically, torrential rain and flooding, and the estimated attendance was only 10,000 people. IndyCar broke their contract after some shady stuff with the promoter, and no major series has attempted to race in the New Orleans market since. By 2004, ISC and NASCAR had made it no secret that they wanted to build a permanent oval in the New York metropolitan area. To facilitate this, ISC bought a 600-acre plot of land on Staten Island to build a 4/5 of a mile track that would have sat 80,000 spectators on race day. However, the plan was met with fierce opposition from local residents. This came to a head at a public city council hearing in April 2006, when police had to end the meeting early for fears of rioting and safety concerns due to the outrage from local residents. You see, City Councilman Andrew Lanza, a fierce opponent of NASCAR's plan, had essentially incited the crowd by implying that Staten Island residents who supported the plan were merely union workers who would have been given jobs constructing the track. This set off a situation where nearly 1,000 people were agitated, frustrated, and conflicted. Lanza eventually ended up in a headlock by a resident in attendance, at which point the police called off the hearing and sent everyone home. Lanza and fellow councilman James Otto accused NASCAR and ISC of themselves planning to incite the riot at the event, a claim that NASCAR fervently denied. There's a lot of things behind the scenes that went on during this proposal that perhaps someone in the comments might know much more about than I do, and I'd love to hear some of those stories. Other than local opposition and the many backdoor dealings that went on, what really tanked the project logistically was the concerns over traffic. NASCAR understood this, and in a last-ditch effort to save the project, agreed to limit the number of parking spaces in the parking lots. Of course, New York City already has terrible traffic, and having a big cup race in the city, in NASCAR's peak of popularity, would not have been a smooth day for anyone involved or trying to attend the race. By the end of 2006, ISC announced their plans to discontinue the Staten Island project. It was just too much of a public hassle, and the culture clash between NASCAR's image and New York City essentially killed off what would have been the France family's crowning achievement. The track would have been an absolute sight to behold, but it was never meant to be. NASCAR may have scored a street race in downtown Chicago for 2023, but the Big Apple still eludes them to this day. There you have it, 5 proposed NASCAR tracks that were never built. Let me know down in the comments below, where do you think NASCAR should try to hold a race next? Thank you everyone for watching, please remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.